Hi and welcome to Behind the Emotion. This is a video series where we are empowering your emotional evolution. And I'm Jade from Jade Sterling Coaching. I'm a positivity coach, a nurse, a counselor, a yoga therapist. I'm a wife and a mom. I bundle all of my skills in together to create these videos just for you. I also provide individual coaching packages and group classes, online events, retreats, all of which support you to move into the best version of yourself that you possibly can. Today, I wanted to talk to you about how your weakness could potentially be your superpower. So you'll see I said weakness in the air quotes because I have found that the inspiration for this topic in the first place was about perception and about how we perceive things and about how that creates our experience in our day-to-day life. So in terms of strengths and weaknesses, I feel that there's two sides to this coin that I would like to look at today. Now, the first side is about how we define strengths and weaknesses in the first place. What are they actually? Now, I think that there's a general understanding in our culture that a strength is about performance. It's about how good you can execute something or about how well you can perform a certain task or activity. But I recently came across the work of Marcus Buckingham, who is a New York Times bestseller, particularly specializing in strengths and weaknesses. And his definition of a strength is something that makes you feel stronger, or an activity where you get energy from that activity, or you lose track of time, or it makes you feel more alive while you're engaged in that activity. Now, that doesn't say anything to me about being a master or being perfect or being better than anybody else. By Buckingham's definition, a strength is just something that you do that you get excited about, or it's about how you feel about what you're doing when you lose track of time when you're doing it. So this actually, for me, really reiterates my constant referral to life being an internal experience. It's about how you feel about it on the inside. It's not about what it looks like on the outside. So from this definition, I think then we could take the word weakness and we could look at that as being an activity that makes you feel weaker, or that drains your energy, or makes you feel tired after a day of this, which is a different kind of tired to pleasant exhaustion after exhilarating activity. And looking at this, I actually, just as a side note, found that this was a really great way to explain finding your strengths and weaknesses to my children, because asking some questions and generating some curiosity, you'll know if you've followed any of my work that I harp on about curiosity being the key. With curiosity, we can start to ask questions, to discover things, to give us new perceptions about how we can experience ourselves in this experience called life. And so if we were to ask our children, when was the last time a day just flew by? What were you doing? What was it about that activity? To help them find what they're interested in and where their strengths are, if that's how we're going to define it. There's also no reason why we can't do this as adults as well. So how are you defining your strengths and weaknesses? Have a moment to just think about that and whether anything that I've said so far actually resonates with you. So I just want to share a little story. I was doing some coaching at a workshop at the beginning of the year, and there was a participant there who was asking about how she could get her work done without the panic that set in when she opened her emails. She felt that there was a lot of pressure for her to complete all her work as quickly as possible. But when we actually unpacked this experience, the perspective of where she was coming from, she actually realized that the panic and the pressure that set in was actually very helpful in her getting her work done. She perceived her feelings as being ridiculous, but they were actually serving her perfectly well. And her perceived weakness turned out to be the strength of a very successful businesswoman. So even just this realization, it lightened the load of this experience a little bit, made it a little bit less heavy. And from there, she was actually in a position to make a choice to keep this or to find a new way to move forward. Just by shifting the perspective, is it actually a weakness or is it a strength, can make all the difference. And that leads me to the flip side of this coin. Is a weakness really a weakness, or is it your superpower in reverse? Now, I got this idea from one of my coaches. Now, every good coach needs their own coach, and I have two coaches. I have Dr. Paul Jenkins, who I've referred to in a lot of my previous videos. He's the creator of most of the work that I teach. You'll find him here on YouTube at Live on Purpose TV. And my other coach is Jade Moore, who also has a YouTube channel, but she is probably more well known for her podcast, which is titled Better Than Happy. And this definition of weakness comes from Jody, where she defines a weakness as a strength, just overused. She actually says, tell me your weakness and I'll show you how there's a strength within it. Now, this speaks to me like, it really makes sense. And just like I said, my idea from this was that our perceived weakness is really a strength in reverse. So looking at maybe some examples of that, perhaps you have a weakness that you're not very good at planning or organizing your diary or just being organized in general. But from this weakness, my air quotes today, from this weakness, I bet you're really good at being spontaneous. I will guess that being spontaneous has actually been experienced as a strength for you before in some way. You're probably very flexible. Certainly, if that's overused, as Jody puts it, it can turn into a perceived weakness, being too spontaneous all the time and not following through with anything, for example. It's all about perception. Another side note, this is only a problem, by the way, if you think it's a problem. It's all about how you view your experience of your life. Now, we'll get more into the brain science of our behaviors in another video. So let's look at another example of a perceived weakness. Say that you're not very good at public speaking, or you don't consider yourself to be an extroverted person enough to be able to hold the floor. This means that you're probably more of an introverted person, someone who thinks more or processes more internally, who pays more attention to detail and facts and feels more of a need to understand things as opposed to put them out on display for other people to think about. So dealing with facts and processing internally may actually be a strength to support you in getting less caught up in the drama of certain circumstances and without the need to perform or have someone else do your thinking for you. It's only a weakness if you think it is. Could be a strength in reverse. And if it's overused, yes, it can maybe perhaps not serve you. Look, it really could be anything. I have a weakness for chocolate. That's actually a behavior that I have identified, and I've realized that I actually reach for chocolate when I think I need more energy. And I think of that as a weakness because I feel like I don't have enough energy. But then I've started to see that a little bit differently lately, where I've realized that really it's me about fulfilling a need that I want more energy because I want to continue to output the work that I'm doing at the moment, which I love, and just do all the things that I want to do. So I want to ensure that I've got enough energy to do that. Now, is that a weakness, or is that my own desire to want to serve people that's driving me? Again, that could be a strength if I choose to perceive it that way, and a little bit of chocolate every so often is okay, right? But perhaps if it gets overused, it can turn into a weakness and I become a cranky chocoholic. So basically from this investigation, I feel like the definitions that strengths and weaknesses are actually two sides of the same coin is all about your perception, and it's all about the way you choose to look at it. And if you can understand that your strengths and your weaknesses are not limited to something that you can perform well, but it's actually something you feel inside that brings you alive and that gives you joy, that is just a great place to start. And if you can see that your weaknesses are only your strengths in reverse, now that is when your weakness can actually become your superpower. So try that on for this week Amazing. I hope that you're enjoying this video series. Give me a thumbs up if you do. And if you'd like to reach out and connect with me more, there is some information in the description below. Just remember to keep it simple, keep it soft. Always remember to exhale. And I'll see you next week.